Dear listeners, we're back with a new story. Get ready for cheating, revenge, and wild relationship drama. The morning sun poured into the kitchen, casting a warm glow over the mismatched plates and coffee-stained counters. As I poured myself a cup of coffee, the familiar aroma filled the air, but today it felt different, tinged with a heaviness I couldn't shake. For weeks, a nagging suspicion had burrowed into my mind like a persistent itch I couldn't scratch. Mia, my partner of 3 years, had been distant, her late nights at work becoming more frequent and less explainable. I stirred the coffee absent-mindedly, glancing at the clock. It was almost 10, and she hadn't sent her usual good morning text. I brushed it off at first, everyone had busy days, but the sinking feeling settled in my stomach like a rock. As I took a sip, my phone buzzed on the table. It was a message from Mia, running late today. Love you too, I typed back, but my finger hovered over the send button as doubt crept in. Was that it? Just a busy day? Or was there something more? Determined to shake off the unease, I decided to surprise her at the office. It felt like a sweet gesture, a way to remind her of my support amidst her hectic schedule. I slipped on a clean shirt and grabbed a bouquet of her favorite flowers, the sweet scent mingling with the brewing coffee as I stepped out the door. The drive to her workplace was filled with anticipation, my mind racing with images of her face lighting up when she saw me. I pictured the way her eyes sparkled and the laugh that always followed a spontaneous surprise. As I parked the car, I rehearsed my words, eager to remind her how much she meant to me. Stepping into the sleek, modern office building, I was met with the buzzing energy of coworkers bustling about, their voices creating a comforting hum. I approached her office but found it empty. A wave of unease washed over me, but I reassured myself that she might just be in a meeting. I approached a coworker standing nearby. Hey, is Mia in a meeting? Last I saw, she was in the break room with Steve, they replied, a hint of curiosity in their tone. My heart sank at the mention of Steve, her supervisor. I felt a flicker of jealousy but pushed it aside. Surely, they were just discussing work. I made my way towards the break room, excitement turning to apprehension with each step. As I turned the corner, the sound of laughter drifted towards me, and I hesitated. A knot formed in my stomach as I peeked around the doorframe. The sight froze me in my tracks. There, in a corner of the break room, was Mia, her laughter echoing in the air, but it wasn't just her laughter that sent chills down my spine. She was locked in a tight embrace with Steve. Their faces were inches apart, the intimate glances they exchanged spoke volumes. I felt my heart shatter as they leaned in closer, her hand brushing his cheek while he whispered something that made her giggle. You're so funny, Steve, she said, her voice light and airy, and in that moment, it was like the ground had fallen out from under me. My grip on the flowers tightened, and I felt sick, caught between disbelief and anger. I stumbled backward, retreating silently before I was seen, my mind racing, scrambling for justification, but there was none. Back in my car, the reality crashed down around me. Tears blurred my vision as I drove home, the bouquet lying abandoned in the passenger seat. How could she betray me like this? I clenched the steering wheel, feeling a mix of rage and heartache. Once home, I stood in the living room, the silence palpable, my mind still reeling. Just then, Mia entered, her face brightening when she saw me. Hey! You surprised me. I thought you were at home. I struggled to keep my voice steady, my heart racing. We need to talk. Her smile faded, replaced by confusion. Talk about what? I took a deep breath, the words bursting out in a rush. I saw you with Steve. In the break room. You were too close. Too intimate. Her face blanched, and she opened her mouth to protest, but I continued, fueled by anger. How long has this been going on, Mia? Did you think I wouldn't find out? Mason, wait, she started, but I wouldn't let her continue. Don't give me excuses. I shouted, feeling the heat rising in my chest. I deserve better than this. We were supposed to be building a future together, and you're with him. Please, let me explain, she pleaded, her eyes glistening with tears. I don't want to hear your excuses, I said, my voice trembling with hurt and fury. I'm filing for divorce. The silence hung heavy between us, and I could see the realization dawning on her face. I turned and walked out, my heart pounding, leaving her standing there amidst the shards of our broken relationship. As I stepped outside, the weight of my decision settled over me. The path ahead was uncertain, but I knew I couldn't let this betrayal define me. I had to fight for my future, even if it meant confronting the darkness that had taken root in my heart. The drive home felt like a blur, my hands gripping the steering wheel as the weight of betrayal pressed heavily on my chest. I could hardly focus on the road, my mind racing through memories of Mia's laughter, her warmth, the way we used to joke about our future together. Now, it felt like a cruel joke, a mirage that had vanished in an instant. As I parked the car in our driveway, the familiar sight of our home brought a wave of despair. I stepped inside, the door creaking as if it, too, mourned the loss of what we once had. The silence enveloped me, a stark contrast to the vibrant life we had built together. I could hear my own heartbeat echoing in the emptiness. Mia. I called out, my voice a mix of uncertainty and anger. I heard her voice from the living room, the cheerful tones slicing through my anguish. In here. Just finishing up some work. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation ahead. As I walked into the living room, I saw her sitting at the coffee table, surrounded by files and a laptop. The sight of her, so engrossed in her work, made my heart ache anew. She looked up, her smile fading the moment she saw my expression. Hey. You surprised me. What's going on? She asked, her brow furrowing with concern. We need to talk, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. She put her pen down, a hint of worry creeping into her features. Okay. What's up? I saw you with Steve in the break room, I said, my heart pounding. You were all over him. How long has this been happening? Her face paled, and she instinctively stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. Mason, please let me explain. Explain what? I interrupted, my voice rising. That you've been cheating on me. That you've been lying about your late nights. I thought we had something real, Mia. Mason, it wasn't like that, she pleaded, stepping closer. I swear, it was just a moment. We were joking around, and joking around? I echoed incredulously. You were practically in his lap. That's not just a joke, it's betrayal. What do you want me to believe? She took a deep breath, her composure faltering. I messed up, I know. But it didn't mean anything. I love you, I really do. I shook my head, the pain in my chest tightening. Love? Is that what you call this? Because it sure doesn't feel like it. Her eyes brimmed with tears. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I felt overwhelmed with work, and Steve was there to listen. I never intended to hurt you, not intended. I scoffed, my anger boiling over. You can't just slip into someone else's arms because you're overwhelmed. You had a choice, Mia. And you chose him. I know, she said, her voice breaking. And I regret it. Please, just give me a chance to make this right. We can work through this together. I looked at her, my heart aching at the sight of her pain, but the hurt ran too deep. How can I trust you again? You shattered everything we built. I don't even know who you are anymore. Mia stepped back, tears streaming down her face. Please, don't say that. You mean everything to me. I can't imagine my life without you. The words stung, but I could feel the walls I had built around my heart hardening. I don't know if I can do this anymore, Mia. I'm filing for divorce. Her face fell, the realization crashing down. Mason, no. Please, let's talk about this. We can find a way to fix things. I felt the strength of my decision solidify as I glanced at her, the desperation in her eyes cutting deeper than any betrayal. There's nothing left to fix. I can't keep living in this cycle of hurt. I need to move forward. The silence that followed was deafening. I turned away, not wanting to witness the pain etched on her face. "I'll speak to a lawyer tomorrow," I said, my voice firm. "It's done." As I walked out, I could hear her sobbing behind me, each cry a reminder of the love we had shared, now irrevocably tainted. The door closed with a heavy finality, leaving me alone in the cold reality of my decision. That night, sleep eluded me as I lay in our bed, the sheets still smelling like her, a reminder of happier times. The shadows of doubt and anger wrestled in my mind, but amid it all, a flicker of determination began to emerge. I needed to reclaim my life, even if it meant stepping into the unknown. As I stared at the ceiling, I realized that the path ahead would be fraught with pain, but I refused to let this betrayal define me. I would rise from the ashes of this relationship, stronger and more resolute than ever. The days following my confrontation with Mia felt like a haze of confusion and sorrow. I spent my mornings buried in paperwork, preparing for the divorce, and my evenings wandering through the house, haunted by memories of laughter and love that now felt like echoes in a desolate chamber. I would catch myself staring at framed photos, searching for a glimpse of the happiness we once shared, but all I could see was betrayal. One particularly dreary afternoon, a friend of mine, Jenna, called out of the blue. Her voice was warm and familiar, cutting through my fog of despair. "Hey, Mason. I've been thinking about you. How are you holding up, honestly?" "Not great," I admitted, leaning against the kitchen counter. "I'm still trying to process everything. It feels like my whole world just flipped upside down." "I can only imagine," she said sympathetically. "Listen, I've heard about a support group for people going through breakups and divorce. I think it might help you. Want me to come with you?" I hesitated. The thought of sharing my pain with strangers was daunting, but the isolation was unbearable. "Yeah, I think I might need it." "Thanks, Jenna." The following Wednesday evening, we arrived at a small community center where the support group met. As I stepped into the room, I was greeted by a circle of chairs filled with familiar faces, each bearing the weight of their own stories. I felt a mix of apprehension and relief. I wasn't alone in this. Jenna gave my shoulder a reassuring squeeze before we took our seats. "Just remember, it's a safe space. No judgments." The facilitator, a kind woman named Linda, welcomed everyone with a warm smile. "Tonight, we're here to share and support each other. Let's start by going around the circle and introducing ourselves. Share as much or as little as you feel comfortable." As each person spoke, I listened intently, absorbing their stories of heartache and loss. One woman, Sarah, described her experience with infidelity. "I thought my marriage was perfect until I found out my husband had been seeing someone for over a year. It shattered me. I had no idea who I was anymore." My heart ached for her. "I understand," I said, my voice trembling as I realized I wasn't alone in this pain. "I just found out my partner was cheating too. It's like everything I believed in just crumbled." When it was my turn, I took a deep breath, feeling the vulnerability wash over me. "I'm Mason. I'm going through a divorce after finding out my partner was unfaithful. It's been a whirlwind of emotions, and I feel lost." Sarah nodded sympathetically. "It's a tough journey. But it's important to remember that it's okay to grieve the relationship you thought you had." After the introductions, the discussion flowed freely, and I found comfort in the shared experiences. We talked about the various ways to cope with heartbreak, exercise, journaling, and finding new passions. As the session came to a close, I felt a sense of camaraderie with these strangers who understood my pain. "Hey, Mason," Sarah said as we gathered our things. "Would you like to grab coffee sometime? I think it would be nice to talk more." I hesitated, surprised by her offer. "Sure, I'd like that." As Jenna and I walked out, I felt lighter. "You did great in there," she said, beaming. "I could see you opening up." "It felt good to share," I replied, a newfound hope blooming within me. I didn't realize how much I needed to connect with others who understand. Over the next few weeks, Sarah and I met regularly for coffee. Our conversations shifted from shared pain to hopes for the future. "I never thought I'd be here, single and rebuilding my life," she said one afternoon, stirring her cappuccino. "But it's a chance for a fresh start." "Exactly," I agreed, my spirits lifting. "It's terrifying but also liberating. I've started running again and even picked up painting." "Painting?" Sarah laughed, her eyes sparkling. "I'd love to see your work someday. It's amazing how creative outlets can help heal." "I'll have to show you," I said, a smile creeping onto my face. It feels good to express myself again. As the weeks turned into months, I continued attending the support group. I shared my experiences and listened to others, slowly shifting my focus from revenge to healing. The conversations with Sarah became a lifeline, guiding me through the darkest moments. One evening after the group, I pulled Sarah aside. "I've been thinking about something. I want to start a blog to share my journey. I think it might help others going through similar experiences." "That's a fantastic idea, Mason," Sarah exclaimed, her enthusiasm infectious. "You have a voice, and your story can inspire others to find strength in their own struggles." I felt a rush of excitement at the prospect. "Thanks for believing in me. It feels good to have someone supporting my ideas." As I began drafting my first blog post, I realized how far I had come. The weight of betrayal still lingered, but now it was accompanied by a sense of empowerment. I was reclaiming my narrative, transforming pain into purpose. With each passing day, I focused on healing, surrounded by the support of new friends who reminded me that I was not alone. I was beginning to see that every ending was also a beginning, a chance to rediscover myself in a way I had never imagined possible. The air felt charged with tension as I sat at the cafe, my heart pounding in my chest. It had been months since my world had shattered, and now I was finally ready for this moment, my final confrontation with Mia. I had gathered evidence of her betrayal, documents, and receipts that painted a clear picture of her deceit. It was time to confront her, not with anger, but with a sense of closure. The cafe was bustling with patrons, the rich aroma of coffee mingling with the sound of clinking cups and soft chatter. I had chosen this place deliberately, a neutral ground, a public space where emotions could simmer but not boil over. As I watched people laugh and chat, I wondered if I would ever experience that kind of joy again. Just then, I spotted Mia entering, her face lighting up as she scanned the room. My stomach twisted with a mix of anticipation and dread. She looked beautiful, as always, but it was a reminder of everything I had lost. I raised my hand, and she walked over, her smile faltering when she noticed my serious expression. "Mason," she greeted, her voice wavering slightly. "It's good to see you. I didn't expect you to call me here." "Thanks for coming," I replied, gesturing for her to sit. "I thought it was time we had a real conversation." As she settled into her chair, I took a deep breath, my heart racing. I wanted to talk about everything that happened. About us. Her eyes flickered with uncertainty, and I could see her bracing for what was to come. "I know I hurt you, and I'm so sorry. I've been trying to figure out how to fix this," she said earnestly, her hands twisting in her lap. I held up a hand, cutting her off. "Before we dive into apologies, I need you to understand where I'm coming from. I've spent months trying to make sense of your betrayal. I collected everything, texts, receipts, photos. I pulled out a folder from my bag and placed it on the table. This is the evidence of your infidelity." Her eyes widened as she glanced at the folder. "Mason, please. I didn't mean for it to happen the way it did." I was confused. "Confused?" I echoed incredulously. "You made a choice, Mia. You chose to betray me repeatedly. You had every opportunity to talk to me about what you were feeling, but instead, you turned to Steve. I could feel anger bubbling beneath the surface, but I fought to keep my voice steady." She reached for the folder, her hands trembling. "Can't we just talk about this? I thought we could work through it together." "I don't think there's anything left to work through," I said, my voice firm. I've spent enough time grieving our relationship, and I need to move on. This is about closure for me. I never wanted to hurt you, she said, tears pooling in her eyes. I made a terrible mistake, and I've regretted it every day since. I softened slightly at her anguish but quickly steeled myself again. Regret doesn't change what happened. You shattered my trust and our life together. It's time for me to focus on healing and moving forward. Please, Mason. I love you. I want to fix this, she pleaded, her voice breaking. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. Love doesn't betray. Love doesn't hide things. What we had is gone, and I can't keep holding on to something that doesn't exist anymore. Mia fell silent, her gaze dropping to the table. What do you want from me? She asked softly. I want honesty and closure, I replied. I want to leave this behind so I can focus on my future. This is goodbye, Mia. The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken words and lingering emotions. I watched as she processed what I was saying, the realization settling in like a weight on her shoulders. Mason, she said finally, her voice barely a whisper. I know I messed up, but I can't bear the thought of losing you completely. I never wanted to let you go. I shook my head, feeling tears prick my eyes. You already let me go the moment you chose him over me. I can't keep revisiting the past, hoping for a different outcome. Her face crumpled as the truth hit home, and I felt my heart break for the girl I once loved. But the resolve in me was stronger than the sorrow. I need to do this for myself, I said, my voice steady. I hope one day you understand. With that, I stood up, my heart racing but my mind clear. As I walked away, I felt a wave of relief wash over me, mixed with sadness. I had finally taken control of my life, and though the journey ahead was uncertain, I felt the sense of liberation. Outside, the sun shone brightly, and I took a deep breath, letting the fresh air fill my lungs. I had faced my demons and emerged stronger. Now, it was time to embrace the future, whatever it might hold. As I drove away, I reflected on the journey I had undertaken, the pain, the healing, the support from new friends, and the lessons learned. I felt a renewed sense of purpose and the realization that my story wasn't over yet. This was just the beginning of a new chapter, one where I would finally reclaim my life and find happiness again.